I mean, it feels like a physical game every game. Feels like it's been a physical season. But yes, I think, I feel like I've been on the ground a little bit more this series so far. But we just keep getting back up, so that's all you can really say.
Before the third game of the WNBA semifinals against the Las Vegas Aces, Caitlin Clark is enraged. The Indiana Fever didn't simply lose the second game. It had been torn from their grasp. This had little to do with outplaying, and most definitely had nothing to do with skill. No, the tale of this evening concerned how the officials essentially handed Las Vegas the victory. In all, 41 fouls were called, 16 of which occurred in a single quarter. On almost every possession, players are hitting the ground. However, Lexie Hull played despite a back injury that makes her doubtful for Game 3, receiving punishment that no player should ever receive, while A.A. Wilson was somehow portrayed in the media as the hero. Should never be made to put up with it. If the WNBA considers this to be playoff basketball, then the league cannot continue to ignore its credibility issue. If you're roaring with excitement for the third game, leave a "let's go" comment.
Watch how the third quarter goes down. At least they called this one. A'ja Wilson creams Lexie Hull like she did 5 times in game 1. Peggy Hammock get 15 calls in a row and one goes another way and she starts screaming and crying. A'ja Wilson doesn't like Lexie Hull. She's always pushing her, but that's an illegal screen, and then Lexie Hull gets called for a foul.
The fact that Indiana managed to fight through the pandemonium only serves to exacerbate this situation. Recall the first game. It was more than just a victory. It was a declaration. Indiana entered the 2-time champions' home, the fortress in Las Vegas, and disciplinedly destroyed them. Locked in from the first tip, Kelsey Mitchell showed that she could take center stage against the league's top players by scoring 34 points in the game of her life. The A's attempts to play fast and showy were thwarted by the Fever, who also moved the ball and managed the tempo. Basketball was played in a cool, collected manner, and it was successful. The Wilson factor came next. The evening she was honored as MVP, she sent one of, channeling her inner Angel Reese throughout her worst shooting performances of the season. On 22 attempts with multiple members, 6 make it. Indiana surrounded her, pushed her into awkward positions, and prevented her from finding her rhythm. She didn't know the answers. Indiana played with accuracy and few fouls, which shouldn't have been feasible in the Las Vegas arena. The end result was a 16-point thumping that rocked the league. That was the message from the Fever. Not only were they glad to be here, but they were prepared for a real competition.
A'ja Wilson's just a big bully. Look at this. Throws Lexie Hull on the ground. Everything she does is illegal. Look at this one. A moving screen, and then pushes Lexie Hull. Do you think they ever call a foul on A'ja Wilson?
People were aware of the inequality, even in that victory, though. Already, the whistle appeared to be angled toward Aces. Despite the lopsided foul totals, Indiana's superiority kept the problem hidden beneath the score. You could still feel what was about to happen. Las Vegas felt ashamed. Payback was unavoidable because the league's best team had been slapped in the face.
And A'ja Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces lose Game 1 on their home court to the Indiana Fever, 89-73. The Indiana Fever were in control of this game from start to finish.
The second game then came. The Aces had goals beyond winning. They desired to return the message. The query wasn't how far they would go to regain momentum, rather than whether they would react. The response was as unattractive as they come.
In the WNBA, you cannot blindside somebody and set a screen on them without enough time for letting the player being screened react. And then look at this. This one, their arms lock up, but you gotta let go at some point. Like, you can't bring the person closer to you and just stay locked in while the offensive player is trying to get the rebound. But we know A'ja Wilson only receives fouls.
In the first few minutes, Las Vegas switched from basketball to physical force. Shoulders, forearms, and impacts on each. Ownership. Under the pretext of playoff aggressiveness, the referees allowed everything to happen. However, when you accumulate 16 fouls and 41 fouls in a quarter, that is pandemonium rather than energy. The Fever had an opportunity to settle into a rhythm.
Steph, why don't you think you were able to find any flow? And when that was the case, what are you trying to do to jumpstart things, maybe on the defense?
Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. And when they're at the free throw line, we can't get up and down the floor. And that's a challenge. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively. We didn't counter that with our off-ball actions or with our back cuts. So they took us out of our comfort zone. I mean, offense is about rhythm, it's about timing, it's about spacing. We allowed them to do that, and they kept us from doing it.
All of the trips on the floor were sliced to bits. A squad designed to sprint, and Move was compelled to play half-court sets, the complete antithesis of who they are. And Las Vegas dominated the free throw line while Indiana faltered via stop-start possessions.
Yeah, Lexie, obviously you were a late add to the injury report today. Just how are you feeling this morning with your back, and what do you have to do to be able to play?
I mean, I'm feeling sore still, but I think just a lot of treatment, trying to get, our bodies as ready as we can be. Part of playoffs, I think, for everyone is it's the end of the season. Everyone's a little fatigued, everyone's a little sore. So just trying to go out there and do the best I can. A lot of treatment with our trainers. I'm really thankful for them to spend a lot of time with me today, a lot of time with me yesterday, getting me ready for tonight.
Nobody better personified this struggle than Lexie Hull. She wasn't supposed to be out there at all. She already has a banged back. Most players would have sat up from game one. However, Hull fastened his seatbelt, took the court, and engaged in combat. What was the response from the Aces? They went after her. Each and every box out, defensive rotation and cut, extra shvees and contact were present. In a single game, she struck the deck more times than anyone should, but she didn't fold. Instead, she tied the Fever playoff record by making 5 three-pointers from the perimeter. It wasn't attractive. It wasn't tidy. It was simply unadulterated defiance. She later acknowledged that she was in pain and required ongoing care, yet she continued to. Persevering. You don't just throw that quote away. That is what grit is all about.
This is what happened. They cut it to 8 and they get 4 fouls in a row. That was not a foul. That was not a foul. This is crazy. 4 consecutive fouls. So from 8, it goes to 13 really quick, and the rest was history. It looks like Howard got hit in the arm by 2 players. They don't call foul. It was a shot clock. But the rest of the game were just a whole bunch of fouls being called, people flying.
Nevertheless, Wilson was praised in the headlines. The box score glows up with 25 points, 9 rebounds, 5 steals, and 2 blocks. However, What those figures don't show is their origin. This game wasn't won by Wilson's skill alone. At the other end, she got whistles Indiana never saw, forced collisions, and bullied her way into the paint. The onlookers were not duped. They witnessed the true tilt of this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's how you look at it. It looks, honestly, by some of the fouls and the way it was going, it looks like we were almost too physical, but yet at the same time, I feel like we have to be able to get that on the other end. I think, sometimes when you just look at the game as a whole, when you look at the way that it works, sometimes you manipulate it into different ways and you have smaller matchups. So, I mean, I just don't think it's really possible all the time for some of those smaller matchups to really do such a clean job of that. But hey, I'm here to hoop, so none of my business.
Aaliyah Boston was a direct witness to that tilt. 10 points and 13 rebounds. Respectable, but those figures don't reflect the persistent elbows, shvees, and absence of calls. There was a war on every board she took. More body than ball was used to contest each shot attempt. This third-year player is being handled like a dummy for crash tests, and she continued competing rather than giving up. Although her line appears steady, it was actually in survival mode the entire time.
Hull kept her out of that space as much as she would have wanted to. She did end up with 19 turns.
7-0. Aces run has been stopped. Sims in.
Odyssey Sims is also deserving of recognition. 18 points were scored by her, frequently while dribbling through double teams, attempting to make something out of shattered items and absorbing hackers. The whistle blew to halt the play each time she discovered a rhythm. The game was always restarted by a foul call whenever Indiana gained momentum. Sims had more than just points in his buckets. These were minor uprisings against a game that forbade Indiana from playing freely.
Purcell and Young. Sims over. Asia Wilson, she had to put some extra arc on that.
Visit Salon Young. Asia Wilson over Sims. She needed to add more arc to that. The tragedy of Game 2 is that the fever didn't subside. They were forced to participate in a mud fight they had not agreed to. Hull's shooting, Boston's rebounding, and Sims' drives all demonstrated their tenacity, but Vegas's physical strength and whistles put out every spark. Indiana's flaws were not revealed by the Aces. The referees supported their strategy of using foul-heavy chaos. And this is the question that everyone ought to have. If Vegas needed both foul play and the officials to win at home, what will happen if the series moves to Indiana? What would happen if the Fever arrived back at Gainbridge Fieldhouse with their supporters furious over the outcome of Game 2? Because, let's face it, this did not demonstrate the A's superiority. It demonstrated their desperation. If the officials' 41 fouls and incessant stoppages turned Game 2 in favor of Las Vegas, strategy was the other decisive element. In particular, what role did the Aces eliminate Kelsey Mitchell entirely after she went off for 34 in the first game? The true tactical tale is that, in the Mitchell, the opener, set them on fire everywhere. Hesitancy drives, mid-range pull-ups, three-pointers, and even daring attempts at the rim are all possible. Vegas didn't have a response. However, she was overwhelmed by the second game. She didn't suddenly lose her scoring ability, as she was only held to 13 points. This was the outcome of a concentrated, confining strategy. Cut off her air supply and make them battered by someone else.
Steph, on that note, with Kelsey just having a little bit of a, they were able to contain her a little bit more. How did you feel like they were able to be successful in that regard?
I mean, the physicality won. She's like a little pinball. I know that the museum's right down the street, so sometimes I feel like she's getting pinged around everywhere.
She was constantly subjected to multiple bodies by the Aces. Defenders kept their faces guarded even when Mitchell didn't have the ball. Her as if she were the sole occupant of the floor. She took elbows and bumps every time she chopped. She had screens put up, but they were destroyed by flat-out crashes or hard hedges. The shot clock was fading by the time she discovered daylight, and her appearance had diminished. There was no talent difference. The denial was purely bodily. Living through it in real time felt like bruises, irritation, and repeated whistles breaking rhythm, even though the tape depicts disciplined defense.
The physicality is out of control, that's for sure. I mean, you can bump and grab a wide receiver in the NFL for those first 5 yards, but you can do it in the W for the whole half court. You put two hands on somebody like that, it should be an automatic foul. They have the freedom of movement. Freedom of movement. There's no freedom. And I'm not saying that we're not fouling too. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's out of control.
What's crazy is even Vegas's coach, Becky Hammond, later said that she wasn't happy with how difficult the game was. Had developed. Consider that. The whistle and the stop-and-start pandemonium that disrupted Indiana's flow were advantageous to her squad. Nevertheless, she continued to be frustrated at the physical level. That particular element is significant because it validates what all onlookers could see. The result wasn't entirely based on astute modifications. It was largely influenced by the officiating, which permitted and occasionally rewarded the hyper-physical approach of the A. Aaliyah Boston was still churning within. She completed with 10, another double-double, points and 13 boards, but those figures don't reflect the abuse she endured. Arms across the body or shives to the back were used to fight each rebound. Each post-up became a wrestling match. Vegas also became astute. After moving Boston out of position and spacing the floor, they allowed AJ Wilson or Jackie Young to drive into open spaces where assistance was delayed. It was exploitation rather than art. They forced her to make a decision since they understood Boston couldn't be everywhere. The amount of ground she had to cover is not reflected in her stat line.
Now the starting point guard, and here's Hull, an early test. Great sign because her shooting has been off. Yes. Mitchell. Short. Hull with another offensive rebound, turn, shoots, scores. 2 of their last 3. Hull again, yes. Oh,
You found it.
Next up was Lexie Hull. Vegas might have been able to remove Mitchell, but they were unable to remove Hull. This individual was a participant who had a back injury in Game 1, making it doubtful that she would even suit up. But in addition to playing, she made 5 three-pointers to tie a franchise playoff record. Every shot served as a reminder that no matter how bad things got, Indiana would not fold. Hull did not merely make it through. Even as she winced with each fall to the hardwood, she gained momentum and made Vegas respect her shooting. You can't fake hardness like that.
Fever runs still. Lexie Hull has scored the last 6 points for Indiana with a couple of threes. Mitchell, good look. And she got it. Kelsey Mitchell in that first half had 9 points, but was just 1 of 5 from three-point range. It was Lexie Hull doing the damage from 3, and now she's doing a Kelsey Mitchell imitation of the night. Sims gets the roll.
Thus, the Aces did indeed implement their changes. Mitchell was crammed in, the Fever was pushed to secondary choices, and mainly relied on whistleblowers to save them. The chessboard now flips, though. Vegas will not host the next 2 games. 17,000 fans have been waiting for them to unleash the kind of intensity that transforms series in Indianapolis. The truth regarding Gainbridge Fieldhouse is as follows. It is more than a court. It's an amplifier. Every run seems longer. Each whistle is amplified. Each defensive stance contributes to the rattling noise waved, even the teams with the most experience. We have already witnessed late-game collapses by opponents as a result of the Fever crowd's refusal to let up. In Indy, there are seldom any calm moments. Additionally, Indiana now enters a setting where every call, every shove, and every missed foul will be met with a shout too loud for officials to ignore, whereas Las Vegas used the energy of the crowd to win Game 2.
If I just asked you to look forward to the series going to your home court in Indianapolis, how much is that really going to make a difference in this series, and how much does it mean to you guys to have that home court advantage?
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. Our fans, they show up and they show out, and so for us just using that, our own energy, but also using the energy in the crowd, I think it's going to be really great for us.
That is important. Silence allows officiating bias to flourish. The game continues when a shove on Boston is ignored in Vegas. 17,000 people exploding in Indy compels referees to take notice. The audience demands accountability when Hull is knocked to the ground due to a cut. Friendly rims aren't the only aspect of home court. It involves group pressure on all choices. The noise is fuel for the Fever. Hull, wrapped up and fighting agony, already demonstrated her unwavering resolve. With fans boosting her spirits, Boston's efforts in the trenches only get more intense. And before she even takes a shot, Mitchell, who had the worst playoff night in years, enters a building where her name is chanted. You can feel her annoyance from Game 2 is spilling over. Additionally, that annoyance at Gainbridge is likely to turn into hostility and scoring fireworks. Additionally, history is on Indiana's side. Teams already tilt the math when they win the first game of a best-of-5 series. The Fever dominated Vegas on their own floor in addition to winning Game 1. One whistle-heavy loss doesn't wipe out that type of confidence. It strengthens resolve, if anything. When a home arena is crowded, Indiana is suddenly relieved of some of the strain. The Aces are attempting to demonstrate that referee whistles were not the foundation of their dominance.
Yeah, we're excited. I know the last time it was the first playoff game in a really long time, so to be able to have 2 more for our fans that have been there with us all season, really excited for that, and we definitely do feed off of their energy, so we're really looking forward to it.
Not to mention the dangers that the Fever has already posed at home this season. Deficits of double digits eliminated opponents. Startled by surges in the second half and a crowd that supports rather than merely cheers. These are the same individuals who are now upset at the outcome of Game 2 and prepared to produce a playoff environment that resembles a tidal wave more than a crowd. Even Hammond acknowledged, "This season, we haven't had a wonderful time there, which is as close as a coach can get to acknowledging that Gamebridge is an issue. These next 2 games are therefore more than just another installment in the series. It's a referendum. Can the Fever use everything, the penalties, the injuries, the missed calls, to their advantage? Can they take the unfairness of the second game and use it into energy to give Indy a knockout blow? All the signs are in the affirmative." Paul's refusal to give up already established the tone. Boston maintains her cool in the face of criticism. And Mitchell, who was once silent, is too talented and arrogant to respond. A hostile environment is created when you combine Clark's leadership from the sidelines, inspiring her teammates with each possession, take over at home. Therefore, even though Vegas may have rejoiced about their changes in Game 2, the truth is straightforward. The state of Indiana didn't break. Instead, they absorbed and learnt, and now they're back at home with all the momentum they need to get back. Gamebridge's third game is more than simply a stopover. It is the turning point. The Fever will not return home to live. With retaliation as their fuel and the audience as their weapon, they are returning home to put the aces on the ropes. Leave a "let's go" comment if you think Indiana is burning. Turn on all notifications, like, and subscribe to ensure you don't miss anything. After you click the video on the screen, we'll meet you in the following.